Hey, thanks everybody for joining us. This is the Locked In Pod, where we talk about a lot of things associated with cybersecurity. But this particular session is around a founder spotlight. So today, both Rinki and I, your hosts, are joined by James Pham, co-founder and CEO of Opsin. But nobody can do a better job than themselves in talking about why they came to do their startup. And so I'm going to hand the baton over to James. James, do you mind introducing yourself as well as Opsin and what you guys are doing there?
Yeah, hi. Pleasure to be here with you guys, Rinki Lucas. So my name is James Pham. I am the co-founder and CEO of Opsin. So Opsin is a GenAI security platform. We help to protect enterprise from data exposure risk.
James, tell us what was before Opsin and tell us how you got to even the idea of Opsin.
Yeah, before Opsin, I worked at a company that do decentralized AI. I was the head of products there. And way before that, I was at Abnormal Security, responsible for the ML platform team at Abnormal Security. And I've always wanted to start a company myself. Like even after MIT, I got a couple of options. I got offer from Microsoft, NVIDIA, and a startup called Cohesity. I wanted to do the startup, so I chose the startup named Cohesity, and I've been in startup world ever since. And there are different moments in life that I wanted to do startup but couldn't. After MIT, I got immigration problem, and then after that, I got my wife was like, "Hey, we just got a baby. It's not a good time. Like maybe next time." And then I got second baby. It's like, maybe not this time. And I was like, there will be always reasons that I should not do this. But I always had the fire in me that, hey, I got to do it. I got to do it. So I finally have the courage to do it. Took a long time to persuade my wife, hey, I really wanted to do this. You've been saying no for the past 4 or 5 years or so. Maybe it's time for me to do it. And she finally agreed to it. And that's where I reconnect with a lot of people that I know, one of which is my former colleague at Abnormal Security named Oz Weiserman. He's my co-founder now. He was on the security side. I was on the machine learning side. I own the machine learning platform at Abnormal Security. So we wanted to do something either AI for security or security for AI. And that's how we kind of get started with our own startup there.
So James, you just casually throw out there MIT, which I think is hilarious. We always talk to you about, own your past and be very proud of your where you came from. How did you everybody's got, or a lot of folks have kids that want to go into comp sci. MIT's the gem school for that. How did you get into MIT? Let's start there.
How did I get into MIT? That's a good question. I still don't know, to be honest. At that time, what I really wanted to do, I just want to go to the US, right? So actually, even before that, a little bit long story, but I was a chemistry medalist in high school. So I was really good at chemistry, and I got a full scholarship to study in Korea in engineering. I finished school there in 3 years and wanted to switch to business. So I worked in business in Singapore for a couple of years. I stayed in Singapore for a couple of years and went to Europe and different places. And after some time, I realized that all the fun is happening in the US, especially in the technology sectors. Every new cutting edge technology or announcement or advancement happening in the US. So I wanted to get to the US, and I applied to a couple of schools. But a lot of advice that I got, hey, your profile is too weak. You're not going to make it to MIT. You're not going to make it to one of these top schools. But I was very stubborn. I was like, hey, in the worst case, I want to lose $100. So I want to do it. So I went ahead, applied for MIT, and one thing led to another. That's how I got in. To get to MIT, I did a really, I create entire website about me for MIT specifically, why I want to get to MIT, why it's a good school. And in the day of interview, actually, I prepared a photo album. It's I just got married, so I got my photographer to print a photo album of me and my journey and how and why I should get to MIT. And I bring it to the interviews, and the interviewer was very impressive with the photo album that I prepared just for him, specifically about him and MIT and then why. So the next day I know that, hey, you got in. I was like, great, thank you. But I think it's a long way of saying that I've been trying to defy the odds. Like a lot of people told me that it's not possible for me to get into because my profile is not very strong. And then the second thing I would say is a lot of preparations, right? Like all the website that I spent hours to build, and so like the photo album I have to prepare, and all the things that I have to do to get there. But getting to MIT had been a really kind of enjoyable moment for me ever since.
That's an awesome story, James. And it's definitely more than that photo album that got you into MIT and more than that interview. So you continue to downplay it, which is one of the reasons we love you. Want to switch gears a little bit and just talk about like, where were you raised? Like, who were you raised by? Like, tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
Yeah, so I was raised in Vietnam, but I was raised in a very mountainous area. It was very small place, and I was raised in northern of Vietnam, and my entire childhood had been like pretty tough, specifically because my parents went bankrupt a few times. So my upbringing was always someone chasing after us, asking for money, and it's had always been a challenge, right? Again, I live with my grandparents because of that, and my parents had to go somewhere else, and it was hard on me. And I always wanted to say like, hey, maybe one day my life would be different. I would live a different life than my parents, and I would, have I would try my best to excel at school. So that's why I always stay top of my class in every school that I go. And I was not just top class, I top of the provinces that I am in. So it was hard, right? Like my choices was between like studying really hard or not going to school, because if you study hard, you're gonna get scholarship and everything. And that's had been like the story of my life. Like even from elementary school, middle school, and high school, like that how I get going, and even for college. And sorry, I'm a little bit emotional, but like it was hard, guys. So that's why like really work hard a lot of times. Like even I remember when I was in 6th or 7th grade, I had to like study really, really hard. Like basically like study all the time just so that I can really excel at school. And that's how I get to the next level. That's how I got the scholarship. That's how I keep it going. So it had been a tough upbringing for myself. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're such a role model, I think, for all the folks that are going to be listening to this. I mean, that's an amazing and inspiring story, James. Like just being raised in that, like you're a hustler and being raised in that tough environment, like who inspired you? Like, what was it that made you want to work so hard? Like what inspired you outside of it being an like hard upbringing? Was there someone or something or like a mentor, coach? Like who was it? Was it a family member that inspired you to like study hard?
Yeah, it was my grandparents, my grandfather specifically, because he always reminded me like, hey, you don't really have a choice. I was like, why would you say that to a kid? But he's correct, right? Like, which is that there's not a lot of choices for me except for going forward. And he has been a role model for me in kind of shaping my opinions about things, like how things should be done, right? Like, and how hard you should work and how you kind of push forward in life. And I always want to make him proud, right? Like he's very meticulous about things, and he worked really hard. My grandfather was an amazing person, and he took care of me, and that's who inspired me a lot up until even these days. Yeah.
James, I like me just listening to you talk about this stuff. I'm just proud that we've built the relationship that you can kind of share that story with us and talk about the good, bad, and the ugly and the difficult that got you here. Certainly resonates with me. I don't know if I ever shared with you, James, but my mom's single immigrant mom here in the U.S. And same thing, not unlike your story. Here's what I'm doing. I'm doing all the things that I'm doing to create a path for you. Now you go and achieve. So thank you for sharing that. And I know how much that ends up creating the person that you are. Can you maybe talk about like some of the qualities that you took away, whether it's from your parents or your grandparents, that like turned you into a founder? Because being a founder is different than being an achieved technologist or a business person. Being a founder requires for you to like lean in with everything. Everything is on the line, right? You either make it or you don't. And most people don't. And so you've got to have a great deal of confidence that you're going to create a path to success. So talk about like double click on the qualities now, whether it's, your hero, your grandfather, or your parents or somebody else in your life. Because also when you're growing up in that, when you're doing the pain every day, there's also other people, there's friends, there's somebody that goes, hey, James, you're different than us. Keep going. So talk about all those little things and talk about the qualities, the characteristics, the things that make you a founder that you think are really unique. Because I want to hear about that.
Yeah, I think the thing that I don't think it's unique to me, but I think at least for me, it's pretty important is grit. Like how you really actually push things forward when things are hard and there's no, like what you said, everything is on the line. There's no way back. Specifically for me, my choice was pretty simple. Either I push forward in school or I go be a gangster in my village. The choice is pretty obvious for me at that stage. And even when I got to college as well, so I was a medalist in chemistry in Vietnam. And really at that time, I actually got into medical school and number one economic school in Vietnam. And I studied there for 1 semester, but I always wanted to study overseas and wanted to see things. So I quit my university, my medical school, and in Vietnam, and actually study English for 5 months, just so that I can get the it called like a IELTS exam, so that I can apply for a scholarship. But basically, like by doing that, I cut off my way back, which is that because I have such a hard upbringing, then I don't know why, but I always try to put myself in that corner, is that the only way to go is forward. And so what happened is I quit my university and I stay at home and study really hard for 5 months, like night and day. And just to back to your point, right? Like that's actually have been my philosophy, not just like this one example where I quit my university and study so that I can go abroad, but also with the startup as well. It's like great that you know what you want in life and you really push forward to it, and you make sure that you don't, it's a bad advice, but you make sure you don't have a way to return. And the only way for you to go is go forward. And I think that's important as a founders, right? Like you got to have grit. And then the second thing is, you need to know what you want and really make that happen. Right. And I think that those are the two qualities I think that is important as a founders.
I want to talk about your journey to the US, but like you talked about spending time learning English, and I've seen some comments you made on LinkedIn around that. Like that must not have been easy to learn English, and especially now that I'm learning in such a short period of time. Tell me about that journey. And then after that, I want to hear about like, what was it like when you came to the US?
Yeah, that journey was very stressful, right? The context is I already quit my university. So if I want to re-enroll into the university, I got to take the entrance exam again. And the entrance exam is very selective in Vietnam, especially if you want to get to top college. So I already cut off my way down. So the only way is that just go up. So what I did in that 5 short month periods, the only thing that I do is to learn English, right? Either listening to English video or to like do some exam or to do mocks or to talk with people. But that's the only thing that I do. Just exactly what I'm doing right now for the startup, which is that's the only thing that I do, like day in and day out. That's the only thing that I do. So like being really focused during that time, and like you have a goal. It's a very clear goal that you need to hit. And this is where you are, and these are the roadmaps. So you just, keep pushing it forward. And sometimes, there's setback, right? I took exams, sometimes it doesn't go well. I have to take it again and so on. But I think that journey is critical for me, which is that helped me transform who I am and kept learn how to push hard things. Like once you do that, and then the people around you will rally around you. Like, hey, this is the mission of the company. This is what, we all want to do. And then Jim is pushing for it. We're all pushing for it. We're all going toward these same directions. So yeah, that's the the journey. I remember the day that I got the exam result, I barely passed. I got 6.5, and 6.5 is the minimum you need to pass on an IELTS exam so that you can get a full scholarship to go to Korea. And remember, like, I don't have the money to pay for college. I need somebody to pay for me. Like, the only reason I went to Korea because they gave me full scholarship, air tickets, healthcare, and everything. Because I'm a chemistry medalist. The only thing that I need is English because I don't speak the language. I need that. And I went to like a top entering college in Korea called KAIST. It's the number one entering college in Korea, and then they pay for everything. But that actually taught me a lot about like grit and, how you push forward to the thing that you want.
I wanted to react to something you said earlier because it totally resonates with me, which is your analog to Cortez burning the ships when he landed in America to really get focused on there's only one path and it's forward. We're going through the jungle. Do you feel like there is an analog to you starting Opsin from that, right? Because it's the same thing. You're saying, I'm leaving the job behind. I had this great paying job, equity package, a healthcare. Now I'm going to go ask people for funding. They're going to bet on me. Hopefully, I've got something for them to bet on, and hopefully my idea can take off. Hopefully I've talked to all the right people and asked all the right questions to formulate an idea that's going to be meaningful. Both Rinki and I think you have, but like, is there any, like, can you bring that back and use the analog of Cortez to tell the story about founder, like becoming a founder?
Yeah, I think becoming a founder is somewhat similar in that sense, in which that I started telling everybody that, hey, I'm going to start a company. And certainly, like, I don't know, but like, it kind of created pressures for me because people start asking, hey, how is your company doing? It's like, so the only way to go for me is decide that the harder thing is just to convince my wife. And then after that, everything is just like way easier because I don't want to get a startup and get a divorce. I don't want that. So after that, like, hey, here's a goal. I'm gonna take like minimum wage for the next few years. Right? I'm not getting a lot of money, and I already started telling people, hey, I'm starting a company, and like by that, it helped to kind of get a little bit of pressures on me to kind of like, hey, how the company doing, how you doing, and so on. So that had been helpful for me to kind of like get a little bit of pressures to kind of start pushing for the startup, like what you said, like going around asking for people money instead of getting money and have the weekends off. Now there's no weekends and so on. So it had been hard, but it's also been enjoyable. I really love it so far. And to the Rinki question earlier, right? Like, how do I feel about when I land in the US? It has been terrific. It's exactly the thing that I want to do for a long time. But when I start my own company, that had been definitely like the joy of my life. I've been working hard, but I've been enjoying it so far. Like, I heard a lot of story about founders feeling very stressful, but for me, it's been very enjoyable so far. There's stress, but enjoyable stress. Not like working in a company stress kind of thing, but like, hey, this is the company. You either make it or the next few years, you're going to earn pennies. Yeah. So
I love it. I just want to say, like, we thank your wife for letting you do this, and I'm sure she's super supportive, and we appreciate that because we're excited about what Opsin is building and, the future of Opsin. So we know there's a whole army of folks that enable that. So I know I want to make sure that she gets credit too, James.
yeah, and to be honest, you can keep it on the record as well, is that you guys have been like awesome and terrific so far in this journey. I think without you guys, it could be a lot more stressful. But I told my co-founders that you guys are the best. I mean, I haven't seen like someone who is so cheerful, so helpful, so supportive of us.
Well, that means a lot to hear you say that, James. And so in the spirit of that, we attach ourselves to you and your success and the success of Opsin. Like, tell us about like when you and Oz were ideating initially on what Opsin could be. Like, what was the aha moment for you? Like, you knew you wanted to be a founder, but we've established that. Now, your upbringing, your heroes when you were young, this idea that you got to, if you really want to succeed, you got to burn the ships and truck forward. Right? We've established that. Now talk about like, you got to this place now, you want to do a startup. But now you got to figure out what am I going to do? Like, how did you get there? How'd you land on that? And talk about like the iteration, like the conversations that you had to understand the problem set, talking to folks that had a problem that they were willing to throw money at. Like, talk about all those things and how you landed where you finally did with Opsin.
Like finding out what we want to do is actually is a process itself. Like you can imagine, the hardest thing for us was just to line up the conversations, right? Like so, what we wanted to do is, I have a background in machine learning. I actually taught a few classes at MIT on machine learning. I've been working in the field for quite some time, and then I also had a background in security. So the first thing that we need to figure out is found a product market fit. So what we do is that we have a list of hypotheses. There are like 10 different ideas that we were thinking about in terms of AI for security or security for AI. And then we line up all the conversations, right? Like I know that I wanted to start a company. I need to nail down the problem. So what I do next is that I started reaching out to a lot of people. And so far we have had about 300 conversations so far with different personas. There is head of engineering, CISO, GRC. There's a lot of different kind of personas that we were testing out. And I'm very analytical myself as well. So we create that table, we capture, these are the pain points, these are the problem, these are the stage of the development for the GenAI. And from there, I did analysis about, okay, this is the state of the market. A lot of people are still kind of exploring and trying to see like what the value that GenAI can bring. And these are the concerns. And the number one concerns that we keep hearing people talking about it over and over is the risk of, wrong people get access to wrong data. And that's how we kind of land up with our initial ideas, and we land with our first customer, which is DoorDash. And that was a game changer. That then we know that we have a problem that someone is willing to pay for, and we actually can build a company around it. So like we started with, hey, I know I want to start a company. The next milestone for me is to know what's the problem that I want to solve. Then we got a customer. Then the next milestone for me was, okay, we got a customers. Then we got to build something for them. So then along the way, I recruit like a team of engineers that work for us for free for a few months. They are actually customers who I reach out to, and I convince them to work with us. So then I got some engineers. And then the next challenge, and I need to figure out, like, okay, now I need to get some funding so that I can hire more people and kind of scale the operation. So with that being said, it's a series of challenges that I face, right? Like it started with like, okay, convince my wife. The second step then is to get an idea. The next step is to get some people, like convince some people, sell the vision to get them on the ship. Then the next one is that I need some fuel for the ship so the ship can start running. And so that how we kind of the conversation and then all the journeys so far have been for us.
James, as other founders are kind of listening to this, like anything that you've learned that was a little bit of a surprise, and I know we've talked about this before, but like anything that's a surprise, any advice you would give?
I think a big surprise for me was you never know you could do it until you actually do it. And so let me give 2 examples, right? So one is I always taught myself as a technologist, I wanted to stay technical. I want to stay with, engineering. And then one thing leads to another. I didn't know that I can do sales, which is like really surprised because I am always very like a blunt guy in a way. I always say things as it is. So sometimes it turned off people. So I thought, hey, sales is not for me because I'm too straight. I need to kind of like have a little bit politeness and other things. So the first advice I got is that, hey, you don't know until you actually do it. If you think that, hey, I need to have this skill, I need to have that skill so that I can start a company, probably not. You're probably gonna just do it, and then you can kind of like learn along the way. So I think that's the first one. The second one I think that is important is that a little bit surprise for me is that I thought it's gonna be like way, way, way stressful. But like what I said to you guys before, right? Like it's been very enjoyable journey so far. I enjoy every challenge of it. Every time I solve one problem, I see another problem, and it's like this is the endless stream of problem that it never ends, and it in a surprisingly good way because I personally am very kind of problem solver type. So the second advice that I got, that I have for founders, aspiring founders, is that don't overthink about what other people said about it. How stressful it is. You got to kind of sell your blood and do other things to make it success. It could be enjoyable selling your blood, you don't know. So I think like those are the two things that is very surprise for me.
I agree. I've never been a founder, right? So I can only outsider looking in. But I can tell you that being a founder, in my view, is an exercise in ignoring all the people that tell you can't do it, right? Because there's going to be the haters. There's going to be the folks that just don't understand the problem set or your ability to solve it, and then there's going to be the salty naysayers. They all exist out there, and really you've got to shoulder your way through it. And I think you've done a phenomenal job doing that. I want to shift gears for a minute. I want to ask you about something that has been top of mind for both Rinki and I. We've talked about it with others, but I'd love your point of view on it. And this is around this idea, like there's about a bajillion new AI ML startup companies out there, right? They're either solving for AI ML or they're solving with AI ML, but just about everybody and their grandmother today has an AI startup, right? However, I would argue that there's very few companies that have actually built AI ML to scale, right? I think one of them is Abnormal, which is your pedigree, which is your alma mater. Do you agree with that? Disagree with that? Okay, like offer your point of view around that. I'd love to hear it because I still feel like the world hasn't created the next generation of founders and innovators that know how to build AI ML to scale.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Lucas. So everyone said that they are AI power. So every single company that you look into, like either traditional company or new company, they would say the AI power something, right? And a lot of time, what that means is that they have a tiny function, maybe like a small customer support chatbot, or like they maybe have like a small forecasting kind of model series. Creating a business in a scalable AI and ML way is way different, right? Like that has to be in the DNA of the company. Like what you said about abnormal security, the entire hypothesis of the company getting started was based around like, hey, there's the advancement of AI and ML that can help you detect and prevent malicious attack via email better, right? Like they actually build like very comprehensive models, surfing models that can push millions and billions of emails per day per second. So for that to work, it's more than just like putting the AI in your name or in your product, but actually like you got to build the entire tech stack around it. You got to build entire company culture around it. Maybe for you to start, it doesn't have to be that way. But you have to, like initially started it as a very manual kind of process, right? All the AI and ML that you see there, like probably could be done by human, right? I said, what you want to do is you want to like have human to manually do it, and you automate it, and you automate it, and then to a certain point, and you can get an AI system at scale. But right now, I think that majority of companies that claim to have AI and ML, probably 99.9% of them are not really AI and ML power. It's just the marketing that is out there. And knowing how to build one is really tough. Like what you said, it's had to have in the company in the DNA, it had to have all the data, it had to clean the data, it had to build the AI and ML models, it had to serve it at scale with low latencies. That's a very hard engineering challenge.
I love that. And I think, if I were to put my prediction hat on, I think there's going to be a lot of investment made. I mean, this is not a prediction. This is, you don't have to be a genius to see that there's a lot of investment going into AI ML today. But I think there's going to be a lot of reckoning too, right? There are absolutely a lot of companies that are going to find a way to make it with AI ML, but there's going to be a lot of companies that to your point, have some small AI ML component in their story, but that's not going to be enough to make them to give them the power to compete with companies that are, vintage 24, vintage 25 companies that are going to be AI ML native. So it's going to be really fun to watch this play out.
And the thing that I like to kind of have a metaphor to the cloud, right? Like when the cloud wave kind of emerged, a lot of companies start exploring with cloud, but not really many companies that really have a cloud presence and then eventually like become a SaaS companies. A lot of companies die being a legacy vendors, and then there's like a new wave of SaaS power that natively built on cloud that emerge. And what I think is that that's exactly what is going to happen for the Gen AI wave, which is that a lot of traditional company that got stuck in the past, they going to struggle to adopt Gen AI. They try out their best, but probably like too hard because the ship is too big. When you try to turn it in, the ship becomes like unstabilized, and it's really hard for you to steer a ship toward the Gen AI. And I think that's also a very exciting time, right? Like for innovators in a space to say, hey, this is the new wave of technological. And you could jump on that board and start innovating, start building out companies. And at the end of the day, that's the beautiful things about the US. And that's why I love to get to the US and kind of contribute here is that innovation is critical for the success of the economy, of the people, and how to improve people's life in everyday life, right? Like if you just have like a few legacy companies that keep existing forever, then it's not going to be much innovation. And this new technological wave is exactly what is needed to bring new company, new startup, new ideas, new innovation to life.
Yeah, Lucas and I couldn't agree with you more on that statement. Like we truly believe that, this current innovation that's happening and the tech stack available today is like extremely exciting, right? And it's going to be so disruptive. So we're super excited. James, if you had to give your younger self like some kind, like if you go back and you look at your younger self and you had to give your younger self some advice, like what would it be?
I think the biggest advice that I would give to my younger self is don't be too stressful all the time. I have a tendency to, like I jokingly tell my wife, dig a hole and find a way to get out of it. So every time that I do that, I got pretty stressed, right? Like the first time that I did that was when I quit my university. Then there was the second time that I didn't want to stay in Korea, so I rejected an offer from Samsung to move to Singapore. And then after that, I want to get to the US, so I kind of quit my job in the VC and then just study GMAT straight for like a month. And then apply for school in the US, and I got to MIT. And then at MIT, I got into all these big companies. I even got an initial offer from eBay after my summer internship. I said, no, I don't want to join eBay. I want to join a startup. So I have a tendency to be stressful about all the decision, but it had been turning out to be okay a lot of time. So if I have to come back and give an advice to my younger self, it's just to trust your instinct, trust your gut, and don't be stressful too much. Think it will turn out to be okay. Just like this startup as well. Right now, pretty stressed, but I think it will be okay. So hopefully it will be actually okay eventually.
No doubt it's going to be better than okay, James. But it's interesting because it's one of those scenarios where maybe going back and giving yourself that advice might have the opposite reaction, the opposite outcome. It's like, don't stress out, but it's kind of we are a product of the pain that we go through, as you talked about in the beginning of the call. You're talking about your upbringing and not being able to afford school and seeing all this opportunity, but not knowing how to get there other than you keep pushing forward. Sometimes it's those stressors that help to push you forward. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I just wanted to say that I'm glad you chose the path of school and not the path of gangster for two reasons. One, selfishly, because I'm glad we get to work together. But two, James, you would have made an absolutely horrendous gangster. You'd have been a terrible gangster. You're not scary at all. 3 times during this call, Rinki's telling you to fix your hair. You can't be hardened when you've got the cowlick on the back of your head. I'm just saying. All right.
James, I have 2 more questions for you. One is just a fun one. Like folks close to you that used to work with you at Abnormal said like James used to be a really quiet person. And then like they've seen you now and they're like, oh my God, that's a different person. And he's so social. Like that kind of reminds me of myself. Like when I was a really quiet engineer and then like came out of my shell, but like what changed?
I think not much change. I'm still a very quiet person in general. If you meet me at a party, I'm probably very quiet myself. I think that what I learned is I learned how to communicate with people. I learned how to listen to people and understand what they need more than my needs. So that's actually good for me because I'm quiet, so I always get to hear what people have to say and understand their pain point, understand the problem that they have, and it turned out to be great for sales. I didn't know that, but like when you listen to other people problem, they feel that hey, I'm being heard, and then when I follow up email and I highlight what I heard, here's a problem that we solve, and they seem to love it. So I would say that like that's just a part of who I am. I'm still a same quiet person, but it just apply in a different context. In which in this context is more on the kind of sales and listen to people and kind of how to communicate better.
It's a go-to-market masterclass. Learn how to listen. Listen.
I love it. And then James, anything else you want to talk about yourself or about Opsin? Anything else we forgot to ask you that you want to like make sure that we capture here?
Yeah, I think the last thing that I want to for folks to know is that at the end of the day, as long as you enjoy your journey, that's probably what matters the most. Whether like you want to start a company, whether you want to travel somewhere, whether you want to do something, just do it. Like you don't know you actually can do it if you not actually doing it. So like doing it is the number one biggest problem that a lot of people face. I know the context of the podcast is around like startup and things, but that actually generally apply, which is that whatever you want to do it. Life is short. You don't really get a second chance, I would say. So just do whatever you want, leave a good mark, enjoy your life, and you will during the process you will learn more about yourself. I don't know, I'm a sales guy, but now I am. So you learn a lot of things about yourself, about other people that you don't know, and along the way you meet amazing people like you guys, like a lot of folks that I met. So just try it. If you have something in your mind, just do it.
That's awesome. I
Great
actually have
advice.
one more question. You're building a company and like every company has their culture. Like what kind of culture is Opsin and what are like some of the values that you guys feel that Opsin stands for?
Yeah. So our number one value is transparency. So what that means is that all the communication in the company are on public channels. Even sensitive topic like HR, hiring, firing is on public channels. That also means that when we have problems, we communicate directly to each other. So, for example, I gave my co-founder feedback publicly all the time. My co-founder the same gave me feedback on public forum and tagged me in it. It might sound awkward at the beginning, but at the end of the day, it's you got to seek for the truth, right? Like everything in life is just like you seek for the actual true answer, and the more you shy away around it, the longer time it takes. Like eventually you find out that truth. So number one values that we have is transparency, or more like radical candors is the term that some people use. That's number one thing. And then the number second thing is speed. So I'm very fast myself, but I also believe that the GenAI wave is moving so fast. If you don't adapt, if you don't change quickly, if you don't learn quickly, you're gonna get left behind. So that's why like we move very fast on a lot of things. Like when we made a decision, like hey, head of AI is really kind of a long sales cycle. We got a bunch of design partners on board. We probably should be okay just with that for our next round. But we say, hey, no, let's not do that. The sales cycle is too long. We're not going to reach 1 million AR. If we want to pivot, do it now. So we discuss about it, and then the next day, the website changed. Like everything changed. My pitch changed. I cancel all the meeting that I have in the pipeline. It's like a 360-degree change. But that's what's required because like you can be politically correct and you can say, hey, is it working? We have all these design partners lined up. Like we can just push a little bit harder and then we can get it. But like being very transparent, very honest to yourself and to your teammates, to everyone in the company, and make decision quick. And speed is very important. Yeah.
One last one. I want you to, like, in a sentence or two, what is Opsin?
Opsin is a data security solution to prevent data exposure via GenAI tools like Microsoft Copilot, Glean, Google Gemini, Perplexity, and all these GenAI tools.
Awesome.